Welcome back to yet another Campfire story. Tonight we've got a shorter one, but definitely haunting, which we'll jump into in just a moment. But before that, we have some fun news. I'll be experimenting with new and different narrators for some of our shorts, and maybe even in the future with some of our longer form content. So make sure to let me know if you have any thoughts or feelings on the narration of the content, voices you like, voices you don't like, etc. And with that in mind, on Saturday, we've got our first short of an all-new playlist, ASMR Horror Shorts. But enough about that, and on to the Campfire story. My husband and I were amateur paranormal investigators. We'd met on an organized ghost hunt. Our idea of a fun night out was sitting in a cemetery at midnight with a spirit box. Hell, we'd even spent our honeymoon visiting Ghost Adventures' Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. We'd seen the world's most haunted object, the Dybbuk Box, for ourselves. It was Bagans' museum that gave us the idea of opening our own haunted museum back home in the UK. Even though we lived in a tiny one-bedroom flat, we started collecting haunted objects for our future museum. Lack of space meant that they had to be stored in our living room, which I have to say made our home look as if it was permanently decorated for Halloween. Some of the items we'd purchased from online sites, others were donated by fellow paranormal enthusiasts. Even though some were given to us by people who'd been just too freaked out to keep them themselves, none of our collection creeped us out. Until the Dybbuk Box, that is. We'd done our research on Dybbuk Boxes. We knew that the story behind the box in Bagans' Haunted Museum had been made up by Kevin Mannis as a means to sell the item on eBay. It hadn't belonged to a Holocaust survivor. It wasn't cursed, and it didn't contain the captive spirit of a Dybbuk. We knew that rabbis refuted the idea of Dybbuk boxes, and we knew that there was a whole cottage industry out there making fake Dybbuk boxes to sell for profit. So, when we got a call from a friend of a friend of a friend asking us to take a box that she was convinced was cursed, we didn't think twice about it. Steve was really late home from work. The night he picked the Dybbuk box up, it was a wet and windy night, and moments after leaving the pickup point, he had a tire burst. Changing the tire in the pouring rain resulted in him being bedridden with a nasty bout of flu. We didn't examine the box until he was feeling better. It was quite an old sturdy wooden box with a padlock. We didn't have a key, and there didn't seem to be anything in the box. We added it to our collection of haunted items. That's when the dreams started. Steve and I were having really horrible nightmares that were surprisingly similar. In our dreams, we saw ourselves as rotting corpses. I'd wake in the night, terrified. Steve wouldn't be in bed. He'd be sitting in the living room staring at the Dybbuk box, a bottle of whiskey by his side. He said a whiskey would help him get back to sleep. Neither Steve or I had ever been heavy drinkers, but when the dreams started, he began to try and drink himself into some kind of dreamless oblivion. He was drinking a bottle of whiskey a day when the accident happened. It wasn't just dreams, everything seemed to be going wrong. Steve was made redundant, my work hours were reduced, the freezer packed up, and we lost hundreds of pounds worth of food. Our landlord served us notice on the flat as he'd decided to sell. Sleepless nights, money problems, and all the worries were making us both irritable with one another. Tentatively, I suggested that maybe we should get rid of the Dybbuk box, just in case it was cursed after all. Steve laughed at me and told me not to be so stupid. He'd become quite obsessed with it, staring at it, picking it up, examining it over and over again. I was really worried. We started arguing about it. Every time he picked the box up, I'd ask him to put it away, and he'd refuse. Late one night, when the whiskey bottle was empty, I went to snatch the box out of his hands. Steve hit me. I screamed and he walked out of the flat, carrying the Dybbuk box. That was the last time I saw my husband alive. In the early hours of the morning, there was a knock on the door. It was the police. Steve had been involved in a head-on collision with a lorry. He'd been killed instantly. Wow, and that's all she wrote. Well, that was an anecdotal tale, and certainly a disturbing one to think about. But, I mean, if you're collecting cursed objects, are you kind of asking for it? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you did enjoy it, really helps if you liked the video and pop a comment down below. Till next time, stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your week.